You've done this before. You open a new notebook, you download the app, you buy the gym membership, the domain name, the course. For 3 days, maybe 2 weeks if you're disciplined, you're unstoppable. You wake up early, you tell your friends about it. You can already picture the version of you who finished this. Then, quietly, it's gone. Not because you failed at the project, because your brain was never actually built to sustain that opening burst in the first place, and researchers have spent decades mapping out exactly why. This isn't a willpower problem, it's a wiring problem, and once you see the mechanism, you can't start a project the same way again. Part 1. The alarm that turns itself off. Psychologists Charles Carver and Michael Scheier built a model of motivation called discrepancy theory. The idea, your brain runs something like a thermostat. It constantly measures the gap between where you are and where you want to be. A big gap sets off an alarm. Get moving, close the distance. That alarm is what feels like motivation. Here's the trap. The moment you make fast progress, the gap shrinks and the alarm shuts off. Not because the goal is finished, but because your brain's internal signal that says, keep pushing, was only ever calibrated to respond to the size of the gap, not to whether the project actually matters to you. That's why the first week of a new project feels electric. The distance between I have an idea and I started is enormous, so the alarm screams. Then you launch the channel, write the first chapter, build the landing page, the gap closes fast, and the alarm goes quiet. You mistake that silence for losing interest. It's actually your own success turning off the system that was driving you. Part 2. The progress. You can't see Harvard researchers. Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer spent years tracking knowledge workers' daily diaries and found something they called the progress principle. The single strongest driver of sustained motivation isn't big wins. It's the felt sense of small, visible progress every single day. The problem is that most real progress in the middle of a project is invisible. Editing, fixing bugs, researching, refining a script for the 4th time. None of it looks like progress, even when it is. Amabile and Kramer's research found people routinely underestimate how much small wins matter, while waiting for a dramatic breakthrough that almost never comes. So the pattern repeats: visible progress early, the exciting part; invisible progress in the middle, the boring part; and a brain that reads invisible as stalled. You don't quit because you failed. You quit because your brain lost the feedback signal that told it you were still moving. Part 3. The hope that was built to break. Psychologists Janet Polivy and C. Peter Herman studied this exact cycle, people abandoning diets, businesses, habits, and goals, and named it the false hope syndrome. Their finding: when we start something new, we systematically overestimate how easy it will be, how fast it will work, and how good the payoff will feel. That overestimation isn't a character flaw. It's a predictable cognitive bias that shows up almost every time someone attempts self-change. The inflated expectation is actually what fuels the fast start. The excitement you feel in week 1 is partly real interest, and partly the high of an unrealistic fantasy about how this is going to go. When reality inevitably arrives slower and harder than the fantasy promised, the gap between expectation and outcome doesn't just slow you down. It feels like proof that you failed, and people quit fastest right after their expectations get punctured, not after they've actually run out of ability. Part 4. Why your brain rewards. Starting over finishing, 3:30 to 4:15. Add one more layer, habituation. Research on attention and motivation shows that repeated exposure to the same task steadily reduces how motivationally salient that task feels to the brain, even if the task itself hasn't changed at all. Day 1 of a new project is maximally novel, so it recruits maximum attention and reward. By day 20, the exact same task has lost most of that pull, purely from repetition, not because the goal became less important. This is why starting a new project can feel more energizing than finishing an old one. Novelty is doing the emotional work, not commitment. And if you don't know that, it's easy to mistake This stopped feeling exciting, for this was never right for me, when it's actually just your brain's habituation response doing exactly what it evolved to do. Takeaway. Put these 4 findings together and the pattern is no longer mysterious. 2. Real mid-project progress is often invisible, so your brain reads it as failure. 3. Your initial burst of energy was partly fueled by unrealistic expectations that were always going to collide with reality.